to do one thing that could have saved me, which was douse the cigarette and keep still. There wasn't a thing I could do except wait as the four of them opened the stalls one by one until they found me. It was pointless to fight back. One, definitely. Two, maybe. But there were four of them. And it would be suicide to try and tell them that they were making a mistake. The year before, an olive-skinned Irish girl named Ellen something or other had tried to say she was half Puerto Rican and ended up being held down and raped with an umbrella. That was not going to happen to me. They pulled me off the toilet and they threw me to the floor. I rolled up into a ball and tried to protect my face as they punched and kicked and penny rolled me. How long? Too long. Then the door opened up. "Yo, Nancy, we got another white girl. You want some?" I looked up through one swollen, tear, afro-sheen clouded eye, and Nancy Ortiz walked in. Nancy, who was really half Puerto Rican, half Irish, was one of those anomalies in our little world, a blessed creature who moved seamlessly between the races, befriending everyone, beat up by none. She came over to look at me. "Dag, man, that girl ain't white. She's Puerto Rican." "What? She's Puerto Rican. That's Shell. You know her from homeroom?" "She's from St. Peter's, but she's Puerto Rican. She just looks white." The punches stopped. A razor blade whipped past my cheek and clattered into the tiles. The one called Unity said, "She's Puerto Rican?" and prodded me with her croquette. "I asked you, you Puerto Rican?" I spit out a trail of blood and snot and croaked the only thing I could think of. "See? See? I told you, stupid," said Nancy. And Nancy, having secured her place in heaven, left the bathroom. And, one by one, the girls reached into their afro and pulled their tube socks and pulled out crooked joints rolled in banana, chocolate, and strawberry easy wider. Mutely, with averted eyes, they handed them to me. "We sorry," Crystal mumbled. "Yeah, man, we sorry," Ruby said, but not Precious. She had been standing on the other side of the bathroom and was now trying to sidle her way towards the door, but she couldn't get away from Unity's watchful eyes. Unity's fist shot out. Biff! And punched the side of Precious's head so hard her afro pick flew into the sink, clattering in front of me. "I said, give her your weed." Precious's hand trembled as she dug around her bra and finally handed me a crumpled, sweat-stained, half-full nickel bag. "Look, we sorry, it's a mistake," Unity said. "You're not going to tell, right? I mean, like, we did you a solid and all. Come on, let's go kick a real white girl's ass." And just like that, they left. And I stood there for a moment and totally accepted what had happened as just the way things were. I still couldn't quite believe my luck in escaping, just with a cut lip and a black eye. And I looked at my bald, clenched fist, and I didn't believe it. I walked right out of school over to Zappa's Corner, where I sold all the pot, then ran back to Macy's, getting there just before the Ticketmaster closed at 4 p.m. That day wasn't a total waste at all. I was going to see Kashmir. Reparations. Reconquista. Black Lives Matter. No justice, no peace. The Knockout Game. Kill Whitey Day. White Boy Day. Or as we knew it in the Bronx 40 years ago, Get Whitey Day. Get Whitey Day was every Thursday in the Northeast Bronx in 1977. Progressive liberal Democrat powers that be, at the very acme of their intuitive skills, decided the best solution for their policies of failure in the realm of education was to bus white students into failed schools populated with mostly black students. These busing policies were disastrous, as are most liberal Democrat policies, and the untold victims were the Caucasian children who were placed into intellectual and physical jeopardy as the ancient hatreds played out as they typically do, with acts of violence and other intolerable social conditions we still experience today 100-fold. Empowered by the false assertions born of 19th century junk science and the anti-white hate ministries found in the prisons and jailhouses across America, black students engage in a systematic and culture-wide agenda of mental and physical abuse of their white peers with serial events like Get Whitey Day that have delivered to American streets a level of personal violence identical to that of sub-Saharan Africa. Every day across America, 640 black-on-white assaults occur, and 90 to 100 black-on-white rapes occur, where whites are specifically targeted because of their race. Hate crimes, but you'd never know about it. The same progressive policies that have allowed these events to take place also cover them up with a pattern of nefarious dodges. The first of these dodges is to call the person who delivered the uncomfortable truths a racist. Then, when that person bolsters their factual statement by citing FBI or DOJ statistics that prove the epidemic of anti-white crime, the apologist then tries to conflate intra-racial violence with that of the extra-racial violence. Well, most whites are assaulted by other whites. That's true, but that's not the topic here. Thanks. The conversation that they, and most of you, are afraid to have is that of the violence between the races. This is where the pathetic punk-ass Eric Holder actually gets something right. You are afraid to have an honest conversation on race because what it will reveal is not a pretty picture. Your pre-programmed defensive triggers have already engaged. That's not true. I don't think that's true. He's just a racist. Sure thing, Chicken Little. The facts of racial violence in America are so damning. If reality were acknowledged tomorrow, United Nations peacekeepers would be walking our streets to prevent the anti-white genocide, that's right, genocide, that occurs on these streets every day. The black-on-white rape level in America qualifies as genocide by the United Nations definition. But that can't be true. It is true. Just visit Bad Machine's Twitter page or Facebook pages for all the documentation of these uncomfortable truths. Don't worry though. Even armed with unassailable data, those same people in your social circles will call you a racist. They're programmed to. They can't help it. They can't help it because of the non-stop psychological abuse you've all been victim to these many decades. You've been programmed day after day, year after year, to only acknowledge any criticism of any non-white by a white as racism. Hillary Clinton's recent speech is the perfect example of the abuse Caucasians are victim, while her nonsense empowers the apologists and the deniers in the mainstream and social media.
And paranoia, hate groups, radically dangerous, of systemic racism, harmful stereotypes, hateful supporters, racial discrimination, in dark conspiracy theories, far dark reaches of the internet, the racist lie with another racist lie, bigotry, racist, white supremacist, bigot, an anti-Semitic on white supremacist, and white nationalist leader of the Ku Klux Klan, anti-Semitic death threats, conspiracy theories, racist Alex Jones, racially tinged rumors. His bigotry is prejudice, a cruise missile, right-wing racial divides, conservative right, racist ideas, race-baiting ideas, anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, anti-women, the emerging racist ideology known as the alt-right. White identity, hardline right-wing nationalism around the world, right-wing Nigel Farage, anti-immigrant sentiments based on race, extreme nationalism, racial resentment, white supremacists, racists, racialists, white supremacists, white nationalists, paranoid alt-right, racist, bigotry, prejudice, diversity, prejudice, paranoia. Thank you!
More than 1 minute and 30 seconds of Hillary Clinton's very short speech were weaponized anti-white trigger words that prevent your mind from thinking critically. White supremacy, white supremacy, white supremacy. That's all we seem to hear from the usual suspects, black and white, when they're too frightened to discuss the reality or their own record of failure. What exactly is white supremacy? Is it millions of non-whites immigrating to white nations to get a better life? Is white supremacy flying sick African children to hospitals in America or Europe so they can receive medical care they cannot in their native countries? Is white supremacy Haitians and other non-white islanders, Ethiopians and other African nations waiting on survival assistance from the United States? The term white supremacy, when dissected intellectually, is simply loaded rhetoric which attempts to dismiss the patently obvious. You'll never find a single white supremacist screecher who heads off to Uganda for medical treatment. Leftist hypocrites like Hillary Clinton, supremacists in their own right, would never forego Harvard and send their child to a community college in the South Bronx, let alone to a university in Chad. Chad is in Africa. I figured I'd add that for you Democrat listeners. straining your brain cells trying to figure out who Chad is. Don't worry, Chad won't be coming to dinner. Not yet, at least. By attacking those who attempt to discuss the unspoken truth, the apologists empower the non-white hate-mongers who perpetuate the evil Whitey and Whitey deserves payback, and Whitey deserves revenge agenda that we see play out on American media again and again without any challenge to the contrary. The mere mention of the realities of black on black and black on white crime triggers the anti-white zombies, blacks usually repeating the same hate-inspired junk science talking points, their black fragility revealed with their every denial of unassailable fact, and ignorant and self-loathing whites who desperately pretend that their genocide isn't called for by every minority grievance coalition and social justice tolerance group. These ignorant bigots have insinuated themselves at every level of government, from your local level to the White House, and their subtle and not-so-subtle assaults on white America are unabashed and unabated. Whether it's little Barry Obama purging his mother's racial identity from his own, or cowardly little nobodies like Councilman Jared Rice of New Rochelle, New York. The one-trick small-town councilman can't tolerate when Caucasians infringe on his black fragility with accurate citations of events, law, history. Unable to defend his ignorance of reality, the knee-jerk response is usually to label Caucasians who know better than he does as white supremacists. There's a circular irony there that obviously escapes the council nobody's ability to comprehend. It's delightful to behold. America has seen 8 years of Get Whitey Day. It's been infuriating to watch the nation undergo what so many of us endured so many years ago. The grandchildren of the same thugs who waged their race war on white children, who are taught only intolerance, are now waging their race war on our children and our elderly parents. The same hate-mongers who fomented race wars when we were children are allowed to wage their white genocide unrestricted today. Anti-white terrorist groups like La Raza, Black Lives Matter, Rainbow Push, the Nation of Islam, the Nuwaubians, the Black Panthers, the New Black Panthers, the Five Percenters, the Southern Poverty Law Center, all ply their hateful craft every day, aided by the cowardly and willing media who hide the truths from you with every newscast. Along with every cry for the death and destruction of white America comes a daily toll of 700-plus Caucasian victims to the minority hate agenda. You should be outraged right now. You should be triggered to your most extreme. Your media lies are exposed. Your race hate is exposed. Your black fragility is revealed by your foam-spitting anger. Your white fragility is revealed. Either you can't accept the truth, or you're powerless to repeat it because of the fear programmed into you. You know, because you're a white supremacist. Don't dare talk to me about the war on women when you ignore the 3% of a single demographic being responsible for 47% of all rapes of another single demographic. Don't dare mention Bernie Goetz or George Zimmerman while black males unleash 90% of all interracial crime assaults. Don't dare mention gun crimes, mass shooters, and serial killers until you're prepared to accept the fact that black males, the minority population, rank number one in all of those criminal categories. Sorry, America, you're not prepared to have an honest conversation about race. You're not prepared to have an honest conversation about a lot of things. So sit there, shut up, and listen, and be educated to the reality you live. Ignore the media lies and do your own research. I've done all the heavy lifting for you as usual. So tuck away your black and your white fragilities, disregard your black privilege and your liberal ignorance, and open your mind to the truth. You want change, you accept reality. First you stop pretending the anti-white genocide is not real. The open call to purge the world of the Caucasian species is resounding, as it is heard from too many corners to ignore. So what will it be? Back to sleep for you, Whitey? How about you, Black? You gonna pretend we don't know the deal? Black Power Radio, Black Liberation websites, Black separatists, and Black supremacist spokesmen on every newscast, Oikophobic and culturally suicidal Caucasians like Joe Biden, who ignorantly called for the destruction of his forefathers' people,